It's ZoTime.
Keys on the track.
What time is it? What time is it? What time is it? What time is it?
Greetings and salutations. It's the Beast Mode Beast, Big Zo, aka Kawan Owens. So for the three-time Trey, we at your episode number 3. So it's the third episode of ZoTime TV. Consistency is the name of the game. I told y'all that I promised to make it a point to come at you every single week with at least one video. That's what I'm doing. With that, I was like, what do I want to hit on today? Because I don't want to just talk just to hear myself talking, because y'all probably don't want to just hear me talk. If I'm not talking, I ain't saying nothing. So I was like, the first couple of videos, I was kind of in more therapist role, because that's what I do. Just finished seeing 5 clients, and I love doing therapy. It's the thing that kind of fills my heart. The other thing that fills my heart, other than my family and the things that I love, and is pro wrestling. So I decided, you kind of saw therapy, Zo, Kawan Owens, the first couple times. So let me go ahead and hit y'all up with something a little bit more related to the world of professional wrestling. So with that, my phone's going off. All right, sorry. Let me make sure I have that thing on mute. All right, back to y'all focused. So when I posted on the Big Zo Facebook, which y'all should hit me up on there, please like, subscribe this video, as well as Facebook, www.facebook.com/Big Zo Wrestle. Zo is Z-O, and wrestle, it's pro wrestle. So anyhow, I just felt like I've been hitting y'all up with some really deep therapy type of stuff, like, hey, don't kill yourself, depression, all that kind of stuff. And those are very important messages, but I want to also make sure that I'm hitting that demographic that wants to hear about not just me as the intellectual, but also me as the brute, the beast mode beast, the beast unleashed. So some folks wanted to just hear about my journey. I actually did a pretty cool podcast. I've done a lot of really cool podcasts. So thank you guys for anybody that's ever had me on your podcasts, including Back Row Hecklers and bunch of other guys, but I was on a really cool one recently, Can Crusher Radio. I hope I'm saying that right. Can Crusher. I think it was Can Crusher. Anyhow, yes. So there will be a link to that. I guess it's more of a sound clip than actual video. But that will give you pretty good insight on kind of my journey into the wrestling business. So I'm not going to rehash an entire hour-long interview, but I do want to just kind of quickly take the opportunity to let y'all know how I got here. So it all started on a cold December night. No, it really didn't. All right. So like any self-respectable professional wrestler, I started how we all started in the 90s, in the backyard. So I started off as a backyard wrestler, IHW, intense hardcore wrestling. Me, some of my buddies, we actually were recording ourselves, and we were on public access television, because that was probably the closest thing to YouTube back then. After a while, that progressed to, I guess the internet was starting to buzz a little bit. We were on AOL and the chat boards and message boards, and started hooking up with other people. There was Trampoline Pro Wrestling, and then more reputable group, FPW, Future Professional Wrestling. That's the group where I met Vic T. Mazza. Some of y'all might know him better as Brian Benson, dude on the Backyard Hecklers video, and IWA commentator, and all around great guy. But him and a bunch of other guys, actually Isaiah was a member of FPW early on. Basically, as he was leaving, I was coming in. So we kind of started off, I started off doing my backyard thing. We were doing various shows, and we'd put them on public access. And that's how we connected and got to know the guys at FPW. And they kind of stepped their game up as far as actually, putting our funds together, pulling resources to get trained by wrestlers at various arenas. So we'd like rent out an arena and have the opportunity to go wrestle around and learn how to properly do, learn some in-ring psychology, learn how to take a bump, learn how to do kind of the basics. So that's how I started. fast forward, let's say 14 or so years. I'm now graduated from high school, college, I have a family, and I go to a local indie show, D1W actually. Tommy Dreamer was there, Sabu was there, Isaiah was on the card, Shane Mercer was on the card, some other great talents were on the card. And just as a fan, I was just watching, I was like, this is really dope. So it inspired me to want to get back into it. So I just posted on Facebook sharing, hey, there's these upcoming shows. I'm really digging this indie wrestling thing, because I didn't really know that we had wrestling around other than OVW. So that was really cool and inspiring. My buddy Frank McIntosh, or Frank the Tank, buddy from college, he noticed that I was posting this stuff. He's like, hey, did you used to wrestle? I was like, yeah, actually I did. And I was thinking about getting back into it. He's like, man, I know you was a wrestler, because that time you was in a step show. For those of y'all don't know what a step show is, it's a dance thing where, in my fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, the Zeta Omicron chapter at Murray State, that's where I hail from, which is hence the Z and the O, Zeta Omicron Big Zo. So that's where that came from. But Frank had asked, man, did you wrestle? Because he remembered at a step show back in like 2007, I did this front handspring thing where I took a big bump onto the stage and then I did a kip up. It was really cool. He's like, yeah, I could tell by the way that you just flat backed on that wooden stage and just ate it, that you had to have some kind of experience with wrestling, because contrary to popular belief, wrestling rings are not trampolines. They are not well cushioned. It hurts like hell to fall on metal and wood with probably about that much. If it's a good ring, maybe about an inch or maybe an inch and a half of padding over top of a bunch of 2x4s or planks of wood on top of steel. So those of you that think it's some big boop, 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 bed, it's not, I promise you. Every time you take a bump, it's essentially like getting in a car wreck. So you have to have a certain love for this business and a certain level of craziness to be able to survive. But anyways, Frank's like, hey, have you ever wrestled? I told him yes. He's like, hey, are you interested in getting back into it? I'm like, hell yes. So he said, I have this group, Diamond Cartel. We're wrestling in various places. Let's hit up Scott Diamond, see if this is something you might be interested in. So I did. I went to UWA at they had a show at Jammers Skating Rink in I never remember if it's Clarksville or Jeffersonville, but Southern Indiana somewhere. I go there. I was going to be the muscle. I was going to be a bodyguard, just kind of make my way back into it. And then the opportunity presented itself. I was like, hey, do you want to work a match? I'm like, shoot, I haven't wrestled in like 15 years, but again, hell yeah. At this point, thinking that I was trained, I knew how to take a bump and I knew how to do some basic moves. I had a match with this dude, Serious Nero. At the time, I was thinking it was a WrestleMania classic. Looking back, probably the drizzling. I probably shouldn't cuss, but it was probably garbage. Looking back, and now fast forward 5 years, I know it was probably garbage. But it was really fun. It was the gateway to get back into it. So that was how I had the opportunity. So Frank is actually the one. I started traveling around with him a little bit, going to various shows in the Diamond Cartel. They gave me the opportunity to get back in UWA. Really cool, fed of some guys that were, a lot of backyarders, but a lot of guys that were trained, pretty good guys. They gave me an opportunity to hang out with them and wrestle for a while. Did a reverse battle royal gimmick for IWA. Cashflow was there. I went up, punched him right in the face. He and I were trading, slugging out. We get back in the locker room. He's like, hey, kid, you had some balls, man. I really appreciate you actually coming at me, because usually in a battle royal, people avoid me at all costs. And so he said that I had some courage, and he really appreciated that. And he told me that he had fed SWE, Southern Wrestling Entertainment, and said if I'd be interested, he'd love to have me. So I started training under Cashflow for about a year or so. SWE, every Friday we'd have shows, and it was really great until it just kind of stopped. So then at that point, went back to just traveling various places, UWA, EPW, and pretty much any other show in the Kentucky, Indiana, Tennessee area I could get my hands on. Fast forward to around Derby time, probably at this point, I've been in the business for about 2 years. There's a show called Run for the Ropes that OVW does every year. So me and my wife, we decided to go check it out. And lo and behold, surprise to me, by this point, I started traveling with Shane Mercer and Isaiah a little bit. We'd be on various shows, and they took me under their wing, and I was a part of the Brotherhood. Is still close, but don't have the opportunity to work with them nearly as much as I should or would like to. But at that point, we were pretty close. So I was pretty surprised to see Isaiah come out and wrestle on this OVW show. And I'd been talking for the longest because I grew up, even during my backyard days, I wrote a letter to Danny Davis with my shirt off. At the point I was, I don't know, probably 15, 16, but jacked to the gills, 225 for a high school kid, football player. I was all Vaseline and oiled up, and I was like, look at me. Check that out. All right. Well, anyways, little ADHD moment there. So I was just begging him for the opportunity to come work at OVW. He's like, hey, I'd love to have you as soon as you turn 18. In the state of Kentucky, you can't do it before you turn 18. Fast forward, of course, I did the whole college thing and kind of thought that dream was over. So the Run for the Ropes, Isaiah comes out, and I'm like, what the heck are you doing here, man? So I go up to Gilbert Coursey, and I ask him, I'm like, what do I have to do to get into OVW? At this point, I'm already a couple years in the business, not counting the year that I did as a backyarder. So I'm thinking I'm fully trained. I don't need to go to no stinking wrestling school. I got this damn pat. But he tells me, you got to go hook up with Rip Rogers. You got to do the advanced training at OVW. I'm like, I don't need to train anymore. But he said, if you want to be on OVW, that's what you'll do. I gave him a business card, shot him a link to some of my matches. And he's like, hey, Rip, he trains Saturdays and Sundays at this time, 11 a.m. So you need to get with him. I shoot him a Facebook message. I think I'd sprained my ankle at a show shortly after that conversation, shortly before I started wrestling. So I had to take a few weeks before I could actually start the training. But I messaged Rip, and I was just like, hey, my name's Big Zo. I'm an indie wrestler, blah, blah, blah. I'd love to come train with you. So I come to training one day, first day. He's like, who the hell are you? I'm like, Zo, I sent you a message. He's like, oh, I didn't get it. Anyways, get your ass in the ring. Go chain. And then fast forward, I think 6 months after training, he's like, hey, Zo, I saw a message from you on that Facebook thing. I don't know how to use that damn Facebook. You gotta be, is this a fucking rib? I said I wasn't gonna cuss here. I am cussing. And I was like, no, sir. He's like, yeah, I didn't even know you sent me that message. I was like, so I've been training under you all this time, and you really had no idea I was coming. So that's still pretty hilarious to me. But that time, that 2 years that I trained under Rip was definitely a level up. So I guess the point I'm getting at, just like this video, just like this web series, consistency is the name of the game. If you want to do something, there's going to be a bunch of little steps that you're going to take along the way to get to whatever your end goal might be. I don't think I'm anywhere near my end goal. It's always been kind of a dream aspiration to go to the WWE. Now, whether or not that happens, at this point, I feel as though I'm pretty successful in my own right as far as being a therapist, having a family, being able to wrestle on TV and live out a dream and have, entertain people. So I don't know if, WWE is still in the cards for me or not. But my point is, if you're consistent and don't give up on something, then great things will happen. So you have to kind of define your own definition of success and make sure that you just keep working, you keep grinding until you live up to it. So that's kind of sort of the short and skinny crash course in Zo. And back to my name, it was Frank the Tank, who is a member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, that before I started joining with the Diamond Cartel, he's like, what's your name going to be? And it used to be Diablo, which ironically enough is also the name that Shane Mercer used to wrestle under. And I was like, well, I don't want to be Diablo because now I know that means the devil. I don't want to be demonic. But he was like, I was wearing my Alpha Alpha shirt, and he's like, well, Alpha Alpha, Zeta Omicron, Zo, you'll be Big Zo. I'm like, yeah, I like that. So fast forward 5.5 years later, I'm still Big Zo, rock and rolling, representing A5A. So if you see me do this, it's not because Cowabunga do it or nothing. It's because this is the sign of my fraternity, Alpha Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Zeta Omicron. And I have, if you ever see me in my singlet, then I have a big, nice, beautiful Alpha tattoo also repping. So that is kind of sort of my story. I'm sure there's probably more details I can add, but that's the short and skinny. So I'll be back with you guys next week. Figure out a topic. I know I still need to touch on bullying. People want me to talk about gardening, cooking, conspiracy theories, how the business has evolved. And I'm sure there'll be some more topics that come up that are just, pop into our head. So I want to keep this fun. I want to keep it fresh. I want to keep it entertaining. So I just want to thank you for taking the time to check me out, check in with me. So much love. God bless. You stay well. And you already know what time it is. All day, every day. ZoTime. Much love.